April 22nd is Earth Day. This day was first observed in 1970 and focuses on environmental issues and protection of the natural world. Some people might be surprised to learn that the Christian faith has a long tradition of care for the created order. The early church fathers often commented that human beings are not the owners of the world. We've been given to it for safekeeping. The Venerable Bede in the 8th century commented that Adam and Eve are given dominion over the animals even though they had no practical use for animal products. The garden provided their every need. He speculates that the animals were given to Adam and Eve to keep them safe for future generations, who, after the fall, would need clothing and food from animals. St. Francis of Assisi is well known for his Canticle of Creation, in which he praises God through the virtues of the world around him. More recently, Pope St. John Paul II included environmental concerns in 3 of his encyclicals, including Centesimus Annus, his 1991 encyclical on social concerns, and Evangelium Vitae, his 1995 encyclical on the sanctity of life. Pope Benedict XVI spoke regularly on environmental concerns, and in 2008 had solar panels installed on the roof of Paul VI's Audience Hall in Vatican City. In 2015, Pope Francis promulgated Laudato Si, on the care of our common home, and he has moved to make the Vatican City carbon neutral by 2050. Catholic teaching on care for creation is rooted in the book of Genesis. We read in the first chapter that God makes humans the stewards of the earth. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fertile and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and all the living things that crawl on the earth." God also said, "See, I give you every seed-bearing plant on all the earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit on it to be your food. And to all the wild animals, all the birds of the air, and all the living creatures that crawl on the earth, I give all the green plants for food." And so it happened. Christian tradition has long recognized that God didn't give us the earth to be its owner. After all, everything belongs to God. Rather, we are called to be stewards of the earth. In medieval usage, the steward was the person who ran the king's household on behalf of the king. He made sure that the house was cared for, he chose how to spend funds and resources on behalf of the household, but he did so with care because he knew it wasn't his, and at any moment he could be called to account for how he was running the household and using its resources. We exercise dominion over the earth not on our own accord, but on behalf of the King of the universe. The earth doesn't belong to us. It's been given to us so that our needs can be provided for and so we can hold it in trust for future generations. God asks us to care for the beings that have been given to us, the birds of the air and the beasts that are wild and tame. Pope Francis in Laudato Si lamented that we live in a throwaway culture where we treat our possessions, the earth, and even one another as mere objects to be used and then discarded. We see this especially, he said, in our human ecology, that is, our human relationships, when we see fewer people willing to give themselves in marriage, when we see people choosing abortion instead of life, and when we fail to care for the elderly with dignity. Pope Francis rejected the notion that humanity can do with the earth as we please. He said, quote, "We must forcefully reject the notion that our being created in God's image and given dominion over the earth justifies absolute domination over other creatures. The Bible has no place for a tyrannical anthropocentrism unconcerned for other creatures." John Paul II adds to this by saying that when we exercise stewardship for creation, we do so for future generations. He said, "Man has a specific responsibility towards the environment in which he lives, towards the creation which God has put at the service of his personal dignity, of his life, not only for the present, but also for future generations. It is the ecological question, ranging from the preservation of the natural habitats of the different species of animals and of other forms of life to human ecology, properly speaking." To be given responsibility for God's creation, to be called to be stewards of creation, is a great honor. It speaks to the great dignity with which God has created us. Let us pray that our care for the environment and the creation will allow us to better reach out to serve the needs of our neighbors and allow future generations to enjoy the fruits of creation. Here's some reflection questions for you and your family this week. God created all things and saw that they were good. How do you appreciate the goodness of creation? How do you experience God through his creation? How does your family exercise care for God's creation? What concrete actions have you taken to lessen your impact on the environment and preserve it for future generations. And here's a challenge for you this week. Schedule a weekend to do a thorough spring cleaning in your house. Be honest about what you really need and what is just taking up space. As you go through your home, separate items you no longer need into items that can be donated, items that can be recycled, and items that can only be thrown in the trash. From all of us at the Diocese of Lafayette in Indiana, may God continue to bless you and your families.